Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Jason McIntyre. I am joined here on Talk the Line by the great Colin Cowherd. Cowherd, how you doing, man? Did you enjoy week one as much as I did?
Yeah, I thought the good teams were good. The bad teams were bad. Washington was a little bit of a shocker in the second half. Gardner Minshew surprised everybody, but I didn't think there were a ton of surprises. I thought the Dallas Rams game looked exactly like I thought it would. Two good teams, neither special. But I didn't think there was a ton of... Washington's second half was very encouraging for Dwayne Haskins and Ron Rivera. And, Minshew can gun. He can play. The kid can play. So outside of that, not a ton of surprises.
Yeah, all right. So here on Talk the Line, we're going to reveal the lines for week two's games. We're going to do this every Monday. It's going to be fun. Colin, let's get started with what I think shapes up as probably the game of week two. The Seattle Seahawks hosting the New England Patriots, two teams that are 1-0. We know you got about a 52% chance to make the playoffs if you start 2-0. Colin, the Seahawks are favored by 5 over Belichick and Cam Newton, a total of 45. Any off the top thoughts on the line or the total that jump out at you?
I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to New England, to Seattle winning in Atlanta. I would take New England here. Seattle played great, nice matchup. But remember, New England completely shut down a Miami offense that was, pretty lively at the end of last year, and they were suffocated. They could not move the ball at all. That was a really impressive defensive performance. Again, I would like Seattle to win. 5 is a lot of points to give a defense. They've been drafting that defense well for about 4 straight years. They did have some opt-outs. But I think to beat Miami the way they did, that it wasn't really that competitive, I think it's pretty impressive. So the 5, if that line moved up at all, 5, 5.5, 6, I think New England's pretty tasty spot there.
Yeah, I would. A lot of people are going to gravitate toward Bill Belichick as an underdog. Let me ask you about Cam Newton, okay? 15 carries, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. But Colin, is this sustainable? Can Cam Newton, who had 2 shoulder surgeries in the last 3 years, can he continue to take that pounding? We know this is a tough Seattle defense. They got your guy Earl Thomas Earl Thomas out, of course, and replacing him Jamal Adams from the Jets. Can Cam take a beating like this? If he has to beat Seattle for the year, that's going to be a problem.
This is a very low ceiling offense. They faced a perfect team in week 1. Yeah, let's not go crazy. New England is a 500 team at best.
Wow. Okay, so anything on the total? We know New England wants to run the football a lot. Colin, they could have scored another touchdown. They fumbled one out of the end zone, the kid Harry. Or this would have been a blowout over Miami.
No, I think the total's fine. I tend to, generally totals, I bet unders, but the total doesn't jump out to me.
All right, next game, the Atlanta Falcons off the tough loss to the Seahawks. They go to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys, 2 0-1 teams. Colin, the line here, Dallas 5, kind of a dead zone, and the total higher, 52.5. Anything off the top jump out at you?
That line feels about right. Dallas is a pass interference call away from either tying or winning that game. Mm-hmm. So, I like Dallas in this game. I think Dallas has some special players. The Falcons are not dynamic enough offensively or defensively. Seattle's got an average offensive line, probably below average, and Russell Wilson had plenty of space to maneuver. I think this is a game Dallas wins by a touchdown.
Do you think the injuries factor in at all? We just heard that Leighton Vander Esch, their great linebacker, out 6 to 8 weeks, and Blake Jarwin, the tight end, has been lost perhaps for the season. Given the offensive line issues, we saw major problems against Aaron Donald. Can the Falcons get enough pressure on Dak to make this an interesting game here?
I don't think so. And Blake Jarwin is a good player. That's not what that offense is built around. They want to get CeeDee Lamb more looks, Zeke more looks. And Vander Esch has been hurt for a lot of his Dallas stay. So I think over time, Jason, those could be problematic. But I think next week, I think you're fine without both those players, and Dallas wins kind of comfortably.
How do the gamblers handle the Falcons putting up a lot of garbage time numbers against Seattle? They had 3 receivers go over 100 yards. How do you handle that with a Dallas secondary that got kind of lit up by Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp? Jared Goff had a strong game.
Rams receiving core is excellent. There's no loss in getting burned by, the Rams tight end and receiving core is about the best to me, first or second or third best in the league. So I don't think getting burned by that. I don't think Dallas's back end is very good, but a lot of people are going to get burned by McVay, Goff, and that receiving core.
Next game up, Colin, really interesting game. The Rams travel across the country to face the Eagles. Eagles, they really struggled. You touched on off the top with the Washington defense there. Eagles favored by 2.5. That surprised me. We'll get your thoughts. Total of 46.5. Eagles kind of in a must-win spot here.
I like the Rams in the over. I think the Rams left a lot of meat on the bone. The Rams are very interesting. They don't have a lot of over-the-top. They're not going to get any free touchdowns. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Higbee, they're really nice players. They're not dynamic. This is not Travis Kelce. This is not Tyreek Hill. So the Rams are going to be a football team that moves the ball on people. They're going to move the ball on everybody. They're a very clever offense. They're not going to get a lot of free touchdowns. So, it'll always be a little bit of a gamble on the over-under with the Rams. But they're a better football team right now. And I think they left a lot of meat on the bone against the Cowboys. So that's a pretty tasty, rarely do I bet both the over-under and the total. I would take the Rams, and I would take the over on that game.
I want your thoughts on the Eagles. Carson Wentz, this is a much ballyhooed quarterback, still doesn't have a playoff win, gets hurt a lot, was sacked 8 times in the opener. Now they go home. I mean, Colin, the offensive line was in shambles against Washington. Are they going to be able to hold up against Aaron Donald? We just saw him dominate the Dallas offensive line. This seems like a problem spot for the Eagles.
I don't think the Rams have much of a pass rush. You just have to double Darnold. I also think you can run on the Rams' defensive front. Washington's defensive front is arguably the first or second best in the league. So it's a break for Philadelphia there. What I worry about is, Lane Johnson doesn't play. Does it hurt Wentz? Is their efficiency down? There's a lot of new elements. It's a very tight end driven offense in Philadelphia. I think it's going to be a game. The teams will have a lot of misdirection, a lot of multiple looks. But in the end, I got to tell you, I think the Rams receiving and tight end core, they just added Van Jefferson, a rookie. I think it's really special. I think it's really good.
All right, Colin, next up, pretty interesting game because Tom Brady was the big story today in sports. I mean, did not look great. 2 interceptions. He hosts in his first home game the Carolina Panthers. Now, Tampa, big favorites here, Colin. Favored by 8, total 48.5. I want your thoughts before you get to the game on Tom Brady and what you saw from him in his debut with Tampa.
Oh, I thought he was fine. I thought he played better than his numbers. He had a bad pick 6, but I thought Tom was pretty efficient. The over is pretty tasty here. Carolina's really struggling to make stops against the Raiders. Their personnel's young. They don't have a consistent pass rush. They had a lot of miscommunication. They have a college coaching staff. So the number -8, I'd stay away from. But I think Carolina is a better than advertised offense. They move the ball well. I think these two teams, I think this is kind of a shootout. I think this is a fair. I do. I think Brady's going to take a couple of weeks to get this figured out. I just don't think without a preseason, I don't think, listen, this is going to take a while. Their special teams aren't very good in Tampa. I like the over here. That's the tasty number to me.
The one thing I saw that nobody really touched on, that Tampa Bay defense, Colin, was phenomenal. I mean, they made Drew Brees look his age. Michael Thomas could not get open. I thought they really kept the Saints in check. And you really like the under here because that Bucs defense, they could totally shut down Teddy Bridgewater. This feels like a big Tampa Bay revenge spot, having lost to the Saints. Everybody's down on them. You don't think Tampa could come out here and put a hurting on the Panthers, do you?
Well, I mean, you have no home field advantage at Tampa. And so 8 points, Teddy Bridgewater is more than capable. Christian McCaffrey, they have good receivers. Matt Rule's clever. Carolina can move the football. And Bridgewater doesn't give you any free touchdowns. He doesn't give you, he's very dependable. You know what you get with Teddy. He moves the chains. So I think Carolina could move the ball on Tampa. I don't know how much they get in the end zone, but Tampa's not a finely tuned product. They can move the ball and not get into the end zone either.
I want to ask you about the Tom Brady pick six. This is now the third game in a row he's had a pick six. Week 17 against the Dolphins, obviously the playoff game, the Titans, and another one here to start the season. Colin, he would tie the NFL record if he has one against Carolina. At any point, are we just like, he's 43, this is Tom, or is it just like, hey, let's ease up. He's working with Gronkowski and Bruce Arians and a new everything in Tampa.
Well, I think, listen, there are certain throws, cross-field throws, Tom's not great at. I thought he had a really bad throw. So, I mean, I think a coaching staff has to understand what Tom can do and what he can't do. So, I think that was a long cross-field throw for Tom. I don't think that plays to his strengths. I think he throws a really good deep ball down the sideline. But, Tom is 43. So, Drew Brees doesn't throw the ball deep over the top very well. Yeah. So I just think you have to know what your quarterback can do and know what they can't. And it was Arians and Brady's first game together.
All right, so Colin, Thursday night, a tasty matchup, the battle for Ohio. The Cincinnati Bengals visit Cleveland. And it feels like Baker Mayfield's kind of an afterthought at this point. The Browns kind of get destroyed by the Ravens in the opener. But listen, if Cleveland harbors playoff hopes, they've got to win this game. Now, I heard you on the herd. You really like what you saw from Joe Burrow. Any thoughts on the line here? Cleveland, which just got crushed, is favored by 6, total 44. Colin, your thoughts?
This is my favorite bet of the week. I like the Browns -6.
Wow.
This is a complete mismatch in offensive line and weapons. Listen, Burrow played very well. He's going to have, he's going to have some real dips and highs. This is a very limited Bengals roster. The defense looked good against Tyrod Taylor, but the offensive line was often overwhelmed. This is the best number of the week to me. Don't overreact to Cleveland getting boat raced by, to me, the best team in the league easily right now, Baltimore. A lot of people would have been blown out by the Ravens. They looked unbelievable. I mean, they could have rested starters early third quarter. Cleveland's a much better team than Cincinnati this morning. I would swallow the 6 all day there. I love Cleveland in this spot.
Now, I think you're exactly right. I'm with you 100%. I think this number will probably hit 7 before kickoff because a rookie quarterback going on the road, short week, I mean, this spells disaster for Burrow. I watched that game closely, Colin. He only threw the ball down the field like a handful of times. They kept everything real short, and the run game was pretty non-existent. Cleveland, by the way, Colin, they didn't play terribly against the Ravens. They got into Baltimore territory, just stalled 3 times, gave them 2 turnovers deep in their own end twice. So there was a lot of self-inflicted wounds. I see they're already cut their kicker here on Monday, first day, after week 1. So Cleveland's a work in progress, but I'm with you. This is an awesome line. I think the Browns probably put it on the Bengals here. If you remember, they've been beaten up on Cincinnati for the last couple of years. I think this is a great spot. All right, let's get to the next game, Colin. The Baltimore Ravens, who I think most people would agree look like the best team in week 1. They are 6.5-point favorites at Houston. Total is big on this one, 52. Texans, of course, coming off the Thursday night loss to the Chiefs. Any initial thoughts or leans on this one?
Well, Houston has extra time to prepare. They were humiliated. I'd stay away from this game. I think Houston's going to end up playing really well. I always have kind of a theory. Find me the team that gets humiliated. Bet them the following week as long as they have a capable quarterback. Deshaun Watson certainly qualifies. If I had to make a pick, I'd go with Baltimore. But I always like Bill O'Brien's won a division and won playoff games. Deshaun Watson's a Pro Bowl quarterback. They're going to get 6 at home. That's a lot of points. And they were humiliated. They have extra time to play. That game I'd stay away from. I'm not going to bet against Baltimore this year, but that's 6.5 points. That is a big number to give Deshaun Watson.
I did bet against Baltimore like an idiot in week 1. But I will say this about the Texans. Their run defense, Colin, gave up 138 yards to a rookie, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay, Baltimore comes in with the best running attack in the league. Lamar, the kid J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State looked tremendous. Mark Ingram. I don't know. This feels like a game of keep away. Now, what about the total of 52? I don't know how the Texans are going to score on this team. I mean, honestly, Yeah, I have major concerns about Deshaun Watson, Colin. Like the receivers were not getting open against Kansas City, and now Baltimore, a much better defense all around. I don't know. This feels kind of like a beatdown, but 6.5 is too much for you, huh?
Well, I just think no preseason. Deshaun lost his best friend, best player, DeAndre Hopkins. I think like Tampa Bay, I don't think Houston's bad. Houston needs reps. Houston needs games. Numbers too big for me.
Now, a lot of the gamblers will say, well, Colin, like, why shouldn't I overreact to just one game? As you said, there was no preseason. How do you approach moving from week 1 to week 2? Like, do you step back and say, you know what, I'm only going to look at certain numbers? Do any numbers matter more than others? What's your approach here on Monday morning?
Well, I felt coming into the year, the good teams have a chance. We're going to have a lot of 12, 13, 14, 15 win teams this year, a half dozen, because the bad teams just don't have enough time to sandpaper the rough edges off. And the good teams didn't lose any players to preseason because we didn't have one. That's what you worry about for good teams. You lose 2 or 3 starters in the preseason. So I think especially in September and October, the really good teams, you're going to have some blowouts. Now, which games those are, I'm not sure. But I think we're going to have a year in which we could have 6 teams with 12 wins or more.
Wow. All right, before we get to Monday Night Football, quick thought. 49ers went to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of this Super Bowl hangover nonsense. They took a tough loss against the Cardinals. I know you know John Lynch well. Any thoughts on the Niners? The receiving core is decimated by injuries. But It's just a team to worry about, given a pretty bad loss there to the Cardinals, who came back to win it.
Well, Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray have both given the Niners trouble. So when you play one of these overwhelming defensive fronts, the game changer, the way to flip the telescope is to have a quarterback that can move. And Kyler, like Russell Wilson, never gets hit. He ran 13 times this week, either scored, went out of bounds, or slid 12 or 13. You can't get a shot at it. So I don't think San Francisco's bad. I think Arizona and Seattle are really tough matchups for that 49ers front.
All right, let's get to Monday Night Football 2. We got a daily double tonight. Very exciting. First up, Pittsburgh Steelers against the Giants in New Jersey. Currently, Steelers only 5.5-point favorites. I say only because you know where I'm headed. Total at 44.5. Colin, you want to handicap this one? It feels like a slam dunk, but maybe I'm missing something.
Well, it's a really tough game. I'd stay away from this. I'm really interested to watch the Giants. Daniel Jones was better than I thought. I thought the Giants addressed their offensive line in the draft. I thought Dave Gettleman actually I had the Giants graded as one of the top 3 or 4 drafts. I'm interested to see New York. I really am. I may bet the over on this.
Okay. 44.5.
The number's about right. I have my questions about Big Ben. You know what I've said? I like Mike Tomlin and Big Ben. Not real detail-oriented, not very efficient, play with a lot of emotion, leave a lot on the table. I'm really, really interested to see, and this Pittsburgh front's good. I like Pittsburgh, but I think the Giants may have turned the corner a little bit last year with Daniel Jones, and I want to see Joe Judge. I am reserving my opinion until I see it tonight.
But let me make the case for the Steelers real quick. So in the trenches, we know they're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. Defensively, they have the better offensive line as well. Their secondary is elite. I mean, end of the season last year, They were one of the best defenses in the league. Yeah. Danny Dimes, your boy Daniel Jones, I think he almost led the league in fumbles for quarterbacks last year. He didn't even start week 1. I can't find, Colin, one advantage for the Giants here, except for, like you said, Mike Tomlin, detail-oriented. He's really struggled out of the gate, 1-8-1 in season openers against the spread, I think, in the last decade. So that's been the stumbling block. But, you know, Big Ben might have something to prove. The last time he started a full season, I think he had 5,000 yards passing. He's got a good receiving group. James Conner's healthy in the backfield. I don't know. I'm hammering 5.5 here, Colin. I really like the Steelers.
I mean, who is their number 1 receiver? Juju Smith-Schuster?
Yeah.
He feels like a 2. Who's their best running back? James Conner? He feels like a 2. Yeah. You know, he threw for 5,000 yards, and 1,000 of those are Antonio Brown. A lot of free touchdowns. Yeah. This is not an offense. This offense does not have dynamic performers like Ben had a couple years ago.
All right, so Colin, the nightcap is Denver and Tennessee. This has had some weird line movement. Denver initially favored. Now Tennessee favored by 3. We obviously have the Von Miller injury news. He's out for the season. Bradley Chubb is expected to play. Cortland Sutton, the best skill position player on Denver, he's dinged up. Any thoughts on the line or the total, which is 41, super low for an opener?
You know, I like Denver a lot in May, June, and then they lost Von Miller, and then, Jason, their right tackle opted out.
Ooh.
So I don't like either tackle now for Denver, which worries me. I do think they've got some playmakers. I think I would bet. I think I'd take the Broncos tonight. Yeah, I'd take the points.
Yeah,
also, remember, Denver in the high altitude has been training in that high altitude. Week 1, no preseason. You're playing at 5,000 feet or whatever the altitude in Denver is. Denver historically has been very good in September, home games. Teams go there and they're just gasping. And I really like Denver. If they can get decent protection with Drew Lock, I like Noah Fant. I like their young receivers. They added Melvin Gordon. I think Denver's pretty explosive offensively, and we know Vic Fangio generally, now he's been in that system now some time. This Denver defense, he's got a pretty sophisticated defense. There's some familiar faces here. I think Denver upsets Tennessee tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Let me ask you, Colin, like Ryan Tannehill, is he the guy we saw in Miami for 6 years be an ordinary quarterback, below average? Or is he the guy who had a 10-game historic run last year with the Titans all the way to the AFC title game? Like, I don't know what to make of him, but I do know this. Derrick Henry could be a major problem, obviously led the league in rushing last year. He's a real big workhorse there. I just don't know if I trust Tannehill despite last year's incredible run.
Well, quarterback, it's like dating. If she has to ask after 8 years, are you the guy? You're not the guy. And if you have to ask a quarterback's been in the league 7 years, is he the guy? He's not the guy. Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, they're fine. But, I mean, Minnesota's ceiling, Tennessee's ceiling is low. I mean, Mike Vrabel took the ball out of Ryan Tannehill's hands last year. I mean, he was throwing for like 60, 80 yards a playoff game. So, you know, Jason, if you'd have dated your wife for 8 years and she was still asking the question, you guys wouldn't have been married. But she finally, she made a decision finally.
Yeah, I got lucky. All right, Colin, let's get to some fan questions. First up, listen, the Blazing Five, one of my favorite things that you do. Everybody loves it. A fan here, Jeffrey S, wants you to talk through your Blazing Five process. If you could let everybody know what you do to come up with your picks.
I generally eliminate games. I look at it and I eliminate 2 games. If there's a double-digit spread, I usually get away from it. I have a kind of a rule. This is why I took Atlanta over Seattle. If you give me a Pro Bowl competent quarterback at home getting points, it's always been for me hard to say no. That's why I took Teddy Bridgewater, who I think is really solid, and Matt Ryan this week. It's not that I know Seattle, Russell Wilson's better than Matt Ryan, but I got points at home. Seattle has not been a great week 1 team. So I felt like I was on the right side, and then it was pretty clear, obviously, I wasn't. But, it's like I got Matt Ryan, I got Jared Goff and points with McVay and those weapons. That felt obvious to me. So I eliminate some games, big double-digit points. Those are sucker trap bets. I look for good quarterbacks getting points. And, by the time I make my decisions on Thursday night, because I have to give them to my staff, the numbers aren't the best. Like, for instance, I would take Cleveland -6 today. But that's not going to be -6 by Thursday. It's going to be -7.5 because everybody's going to pound the Browns on that. So the disadvantage to Blazing Five is if I was really a professional bettor, I'd make my bets this morning. I would have the Rams this morning and I would have the Browns this morning and I would pound them. But by Thursday, I have to take those lines for Blazing Five. So we're at a little disadvantage, well, kind of a lot of a disadvantage. But I just look for certain tells. I always feel if I lose, that's okay. Am I on the right side of the bet? Like yesterday with the Jets, I was on the wrong side. I just was on the wrong side. Poorly coached team, well-coached team. Game was over, middle of the second quarter. Yeah. And that's kind of my process. Eliminate the sucker trap bets. seek value. I'm always seeking good quarterbacks getting points potentially at home. I have one rule. I generally like teams, if they have a competent quarterback, who were humiliated the previous week. Nobody wants to get embarrassed on TV. Secondly, fans tend to overreact to blowout wins on TV. Everybody overreacts to Cowboy games. If they lose, everybody sells their stock. So the Cowboys are probably a decent bet this week.
Well, that's what everybody gets for watching. The early numbers hit like Colin said. He loves the Browns.
Love them.
Big action, folks. Colin, thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun. We'll be doing this every Monday, everybody. Enjoy the week. We'll talk to you later.
Awesome.